Let's put this down. Another question?
What's the thing your foot's on?
Oh, well, this is a recreation of the porch. Since I couldn't bring a so this is like this would be just like. Which I'll show you what some of the early recordings that John Lee Hooker did. I'm kind of moving up to 1947 now, right after the war. But I'll show you an example of a song that. This is just again a lot. Most of the concerts were like on these. They didn't really have a drummer. A lot of the Mississippi Delta, you just had the porch or a juke joint, and the juke joint would always have like a wood floor that could really. It wasn't like a tongue and groove. It was just like a plywood floor that they could bang on, and that was what you could get your percussion out of. So instead of the same thing, instead of bringing that in, these are all sorts of like models of things that we can do. But you'll see that one of the main things that helps in the blues is to have that driving, and you can hear they actually did that in the studio. They would actually on a lot of John Lee Hooker songs, and even like some of the early Muddy Waters stuff, they would have that beat. So let's get a capo out. A lot of the guys didn't change a lot of keys, so they would just take a capo because the guitars. One of the big things what's going on, and I asked Honey Boy Edwards about this. I grew up in Chicago, and I was very blessed to have traveled with Honey Boy Edwards, who was one of the last guys that knew Robert Johnson and Charlie Patton, a lot of those guys, and Homesick James. And I always ask, why were all the guitars always tuned? A lot of stuff was tuned in a different key, but that's because a guitar. We didn't have this back in the 20s and 30s, so they'd have to project. So the guitars were tuned to a certain way, so that anytime if they had to accompany like a piano player or something like that, you would go ahead and put a capo on. So that's why you got the capo. See how you got that foot down going? It's kind of loud, actually. Charlie Pat would do that, always bang on his guitar. Let me tell you now, some of our people, something really ought to know. Let me tell you now, some of our people, something really ought to know. You got the boogie in your hot now, boogie down in your shoes. Boogie right down here, I got those old boogie blues. You got the boogie, baby, all night long. Boogie, baby, all night long. A little bit of that. Actually, when I started that, I'm going to do, John Lee Hooker recorded that on the Modern label in '47, but really he took a lot of that from Barbecue Bob, who recorded in 1928. There was a big flood on the Mississippi River in 1928. The spring. It was the bad winter up north, so all that water, the ice melted and went down to Mississippi and flooded the Helena, Arkansas region. Barbecue Bob was a pretty big hit for him back in 1928. He recorded a song. It's called Mississippi Heavy Water Blues. I'm going to turn this down a little bit and show you kind of what an early Delta blues band. I was walking down the levee my head hanging low, looking for my mama, but she ain't here no more. That's why I cry, Mississippi heavy water blues. I'm sitting here now looking at all of this flood. My gal got lost away in that Mississippi flood. That's why I cry, Mississippi heavy water blues. And I cried, how long for another payday? That's why I cried, Mississippi heavy water. Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at all of this mud. My gal got washed away in that Mississippi flood. That's why I cried, Mississippi heavy water. Stevie, now, come on now. Come on now. Mississippi's sinking, Louisiana's thinking, everyone up in the hell now Arkansas crying, whole town's singing out. That's why I'm crying, Mississippi heavy water blues. Just one more thing, Mr. Barbecue Bob, that's all I've got to say. There ain't no women out here, they all got washed away. That's why I'm crying, Mississippi heavy water blues. Hold on here. Mississippi heavy water blues. Yeah, get on down.
Yeah.
Thank you. Barbecue Bob. Barbecue Bob also was the guy that wrote the song Motherless Children that Eric Clapton and a lot of people have covered. So Barbecue Bob. So where did all these guys come from? What are the names? It's just amazing. If you get a chance, if you really want to have a good time, go to Mississippi and check out Clarksdale, check out Cleveland, check out Yazoo City. Check out there. We've got a lot of, the state of Mississippi's done a great job in the Mississippi Blues Trail, showing people like Como, Mississippi, where I'll do a Mississippi Fred McDowell. It's amazing, you know. I think out of when people create better, and I know for myself, you know, I would really, the last time I came up with a good album was when a girl dumped me. I think that, you know, Rebecca's
why they call it the blues.
Right, exactly. You know, exactly. And I think out of that whole era,
traded up.
It was a simple time, but you know, there was a lot. African Americans really had a hard time with oppression. I mean, even after the civil rights movement, it was very difficult for a lot of them, and it was so they built their own culture, and all these characters were all over the place. You know, you know, they didn't have the cell phones, but every there was the Crystal Springs region, the Yazoo City, Friar Point. There's all these great guys, and it all came out of you know, this was their thing. Saturday nights was the big night that everybody got off. You know, people could spend Sunday. So the blues came out of that. I mean, pretty much. Bill and I, we're going to be doing one about the piano blues this Friday at Braden. Bill Buckman is a genius of knowing piano. You know, a lot of the the slaves came in through New Orleans. That was one of the ports. So a lot of them stayed there and learned a lot about piano and you know, there was another side of piano-style blues. But a lot of people have ended up, you know, New Orleans, Macomb, Mississippi is just an hour north, and a lot of them went through that whole way up. And if you've got the early acoustic country bluesmen like Charlie Patton, Funny Papa Smith, Jackson, I'm trying to remember his name, he played the banjo, Funny Pop. Anyway, there's a lot of them to go over. But are there any questions so far as we're still like getting back into 1920 and Robert Johnson and that?
Steve, when did the harp start to become a blues thing?
Well, I would think that Papa Lightfoot and there was, who was the guy that did Devil in the Woodpile? There was the there was also the guy that played with there was harmonica there. It wasn't as popular in blues as it was in jug style until, like, I think that your first real harmonica popular guy was Sonny Boy Williamson #1, which is James Williamson. And then the harmonica got really popular after Little Walter released Juke in 1954. Then everybody needed to buy a harmonica. But well, Sonny Boy too was really popular too. He came around in the late 40s and did the King Biscuit Flower Hour out of Helena. But and actually, I got Miguel here is going to come up and play some harmonica as we progress into the Chicago arena. But